Hi, it's Steph, and today I visited a local to me nursery. I went there looking for one plant and I came home with a lot more than that. So let me go ahead and take you along so you can check out what I found, and I will give you a little tour of my haul at the end. Does anything feel better or smell better than a warm greenhouse on a cool spring day? I don't think so. And today I'm at Avant Gardens in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, and I'm picking up a couple of really fun plants that I had seen on their website. So here is one of them. This is Culver's root called Apollo, and it's a really cool type of Veronica plant that is really tall and blooms in summer and autumn. So I'm really looking to continue my bloom show into the fall and getting things that bloom late summer. So I came in looking for this plant and a couple of other things that I'm going to share with you. But here it is. It's a native, blooms mid to late summer. Veronicastrum Apollo. It gets 3 to 4 feet tall and just about that size and width as well over time, and it is hardy in zones 4 through 8. There's also a white variety here as well. The Virginicum, I believe, is the name. Here's the information on that one. 4 foot tall, mid to late summer, zones 4 through 8. This lobelia is another great late summer bloomer, July through August, and it has really pretty darker foliage with red blooms that the pollinators really love. It's called Starship Scarlet. This major wheeler honeysuckle has really pretty coral blooms. It's a real pretty one. I love how they have the QR code there that you can scan to get more information on the plant. Lychnis. This looks like rose campion. Oculata. So you'll find a lot of unique plants here, some native and some non-native mixed in. This is a real pretty bee balm, the Jacob Klein. Has kind of like a reddish fuchsia type bloom. Nice and healthy looking. I also love the smell, the bergamot smell of the foliage. Has a really pleasant fragrance. Here's a purple one, Purple Rooster. Is this like a pink muley grass? Yeah, it is. Pink cloud. Very pretty. Look at that. It's like a cotton candy puff. Look at these poppies. They look so healthy and beautiful. Even the foliage on poppies are so pretty. This is an oriental poppy called Brilliant. And it grows 30 to 36 inches tall, zones 3 through 7. These do like a really well draining soil. I had one planted in a little bit of moisture and it ended up rotting on me. Every year the plant got a little smaller until one year it just didn't return. Some penstemon. I have this variety in my garden, the dark towers. I really love anything that has dark foliage like that. And then the blooms are gorgeous. They're like a light lavender, pink, purple, and really tall. The pollinators love it. Blooms for me in June, usually mid-June or so, and the pollinators just go crazy for it. What is this cool plant? Look at this yellow variegation. It's called Daphnis, Greater Masterwort, and Jerusalem Sage. That's really interesting. It almost looks like a type of bee balm. And Phlox paniculata Gina. Oh, I've heard about this variety before. I'm not sure what exactly I heard, but I think it's a real popular one. Perhaps it's more resistant to things like powdery mildew, but it's a real beautiful one. Look at this Rudbeckia. It's called Green Wizard. It has a really tall, skinny cone. I'm guessing that the bloom is some shade of green, and it gets to be 2 to 3 feet tall, hardy in zones 3 through 9, and blooms summer to fall. Look at this one, the Cherry Brandy Rudbeckia. Last year, for the first time from seed, I grew the Sahara Rudbeckia. Similar colors, gorgeous. And I didn't cut it back, and it's returning, which is super exciting. I found that there was some new green shoots coming out, and I was surprised because I thought it was going to be an annual in my zone, and it turns out it came back. We did have a mild winter, so that's probably why. Stokesia. I planted some of this in my garden a couple of years ago. I have the purple one, but look at this one. It looks like it's a shade of buttery yellow. Mary Gregory Stokes Aster. They like full sun, and it blooms early to midsummer in zones 5 through 9. 18 inches in height. It's real pretty. Here's the one that I have, the Peachy's Pick Stokesia. Very pretty, light lavender purple. This is a fun plant. I bought one for my garden last year. It's the meadow rue. This one's called Lavender Mist, and it gets pretty tall. So this is a great kind of middle of the border accent plant. And then it gets these little dainty kind of blooms. This one I'm guessing is going to be purple, right? Like the picture here. Zones 3 through 9, 4 to 5 feet tall, and blooms late spring through early summer. They also like soil that is moist but well draining, and it's deer resistant, which is great for me in my garden because we deal with a lot of deer. This is the one that I purchased, was the Nimbus Pink. And it was a small plant like this, so I'm hoping it'll bloom this year. There was a bee all over these dainty little yellow blooms, and this is called barren strawberry, but it's not an actual strawberry that bears fruit. It's more like a ground cover, as it was explained to me, and it's great for an early food source for pollinators because it's already blooming now in spring with these dainty little yellow blooms. In fact, there was a big old bee on here a little while ago, really enjoying itself. And they have two lavender varieties here that have been really popular among seasoned gardeners, the Lavender Sensational and the Lavender Phenomenal. I have heard nothing but great things about these two varieties of lavender. So when the lavender that I have in my garden finally succumbs to being too woody and needs to be replaced, I am certainly going to replace it with one of these two varieties. So it looks like the Phenomenal gets a little bit bigger at 30 to 36 inches tall and wide. Blooms in summer, hardy in zones 5 through 9. And the Sensational blooms in summer as well, and it gets 24 to 30 inches tall and wide in zones 5 through 8. But these smell amazing. Even the foliage, oh, I love lavender. Lavender likes a really well-draining soil and full sun. Here's one of the plants that I came to pick up. They have two varieties, so now I'm trying to decide between the two of them. It's a Euphorbia. So there's this one here that is the Miner's Merlot. Look at that gorgeous red foliage. And then he gets the cutest blooms in the spring. I'll show you an example of some of the Euphorbia blooms. And then there's this variety here that is called Blackbird, which also has dark foliage. Now I'm just going to see what color the blooms are on each of them before I decide on a variety. But what made me fall in love with Euphorbia was this variety here, the Ascot Rainbow. I actually purchased one here at this nursery a couple of years ago, fell in love with it, and bought more last season. In my May of 2024 garden tour, as well as in my shade garden combinations video, I showed what this looks like. It has the most beautiful variegated foliage, and then at the end of May, beginning of June, it gets these really cool chartreuse blooms that I love. It's such a unique plant, adds a lot of color to a shady spot in the garden, and I love it. So this one again is the Ascot Rainbow Euphorbia. And I didn't think it was hardy in my zone, but it turns out that it is. And it gets to be, let's see how big. It gets 20 inches in height, needs 20-inch spacing, and it likes full sun, but I have mine in part shade and it's doing just fine. This is what the blooms look like on the Euphorbia. They're these really cool kind of dainty little discs in chartreuse, yellow-green, just gorgeous. Look at that. I love them. This variety here is called Rob's Euphorbia. It has kind of a green foliage. But really, really interesting plant. Look at this, they have Cardoon, which has a really interesting bloom. And the foliage is also really pretty. It has like this kind of silvery gray look to them. Let's see how big it gets. Bold foliage, blooms late summer, zones 6 through 9. This heuchera is gorgeous. Look at the size of these leaves. It's called Southern Comfort Coral Bells. Blooms early summer, 12 inches tall and wide, zones 4 through 9. This is stunning. I don't have the best luck with coral bells in my garden, although the caramel one does do pretty well. All the other ones will do great for a year, and then they start getting a little bit smaller in subsequent years until they almost disappear. But this one has such a stunning orangey color. This is a stunning ground cover that I have in my garden as well. I had purchased it years ago at a garden fair. It is prolific. This is the geranium macarizum. The variety here is the Bevins variety. It's a big root geranium. It blooms May through June, or May and June, and it's a ground cover that gets 12 to 15 inches tall and hardy in zones 4 through 8. Now, this smells really nice, and the pollinators love these little pink blooms. Once you have this in your garden, you can just spread it around. It grows really well under trees, which a lot of things have a hard time growing under trees because of the root competition, but I have it planted under some really large and mature native oaks, and it does beautifully. And then Geum, one of my favorite spring bloomers. This one is the Tequila Sunrise. Really pretty color. It looks like yellow with a little bit of like a salmon or a peach on the edges. Blooms May through August, 18 to 28 inches tall, and hardy in zones 4 through 9. Geum's also known as Avens. It's really pretty. Mine is called Mai Tai. Like sun to part shade. This one is all budded up already. Look at that. So cute. And look at this really cool Geum. This is the Prairie Smoke. It almost looks like cotton candy again, right? Look at that. So unique. And this one gets to be 12 to 15 inches tall and hardy in zones 3 through 8. It likes well-drained soil. So really a lot of cool plants here. If you're local, I highly recommend the visit, but they also have a website and they ship now. So I can link that below for you to check out if you're interested. This is one of the other plants that was on my list to pick up. Last year, I bought the Gallinia trifoliata, the white one, and this year I found that they had this pink variety, and it's called Pink Profusion, Bowman's Root, native to the US, and blooms May through July. It almost looks like a Gara to me. Really pretty dainty flowers that kind of float above the stems. Really nice. Hardy in zones 4 through 8. So very hardy as well. But the plants aren't as far along as I had hoped they'd be. So I will come back in about a month or so and check on them and pick some up then. Some cool coneflowers or echinacea. There's this one here that's a yellow coneflower called Paradoxa. 2 to 3 feet tall and zones 3 through 8. Blooms summer. This one is a white variety. It's called Virgin. Mid to late summer bloomer, 2 feet tall, zones 3 through 8. It's a pretty one. It's almost like the white version of the purpurea, is what it looks like it is. And then there's this one, Alba, which is also an Echinacea purpurea white variety, 18 inches tall, so it's a little bit shorter. Mid to late summer bloomer, zones 3 through 8. And then the hula dancer, which is really cool, kind of has this downward sweeping petal. And I bought one last summer. Actually, it was the fall. And it was, when I bought it, it was the pink ballet pink. Oh, I can't remember it right now. Pink parasols. That's what it was. And also has this downward sweeping with pink with a little bit of white, which is also really pretty. And then the green twister, which I have in my garden, I grew from seed. It's a really cool kind of, it's purpurea, so purplish pink with a little bit of green tips. Very pretty. 2 to 3 feet tall. And then the Paradoxa and Happy Star, which is another white variety. Here's a perennial I got into last year, the asters. Now, it's really easy to have a spring blooming garden and even summer, but as you get to the later part of summer and fall, it gets harder to keep the blooms coming. And so there are a few plants that you can add, things like Joe Pye weed, anemones, and then last year I discovered asters, and there's some really pretty ones. This one here, I won't pretend to know how to pronounce that, but I'll show you the tag. Really beautiful, like a bluish color bloom. Gets 2 to 3 feet tall in zones 3 through 8. But look at that, it blooms September through October. And then this one here blooms late summer into fall, Mary's White. And then this one here is called Bluebird. Also has a really beautiful bloom. And it gets 18 inches to 3 feet tall, fall blooming, zones 4 through 8. But there are so many. Look at that one, it's called October Skies. Zoom in a little bit. That's a real beautiful one too. 20 to 24 inches tall and hardy in zones 3 through 8. But there are so many of these blue asters that bloom in that late summer to early fall time frame, which are a great addition to your perennial borders. This one here looks like it's a white and a lavender. And then there's Raiden's Favorite, which is another blue. So it's an Angelica Durica. It almost looks like Queen Anne's lace. Look at that. It's a biennial, short-lived perennial, blooms early summer, 5 to 6 feet tall, zones 4 through 7. Very interesting. And anemones, I love these. So there's the Rubitissima, which I do have in my garden. And they're deer resistant, bloom late summer, early fall, gorgeous blooms. They like kind of a moist soil, obviously not sitting in puddles, but something that retains moisture. They'd be really happy because I have them in a bed that stays a little bit wet, and they're doing really well and spreading. So this one I have as well, the Honorine Jobert, which is a pretty white variety. Really great plant to add for that late season color. Amsonia, another real pretty one that will bloom for you in spring, and then you'll get this gorgeous foliage color in the fall. Look at that. This one's called Butterscotch, and that's what the color looks like a golden butterscotch. So beautiful. Hardy in zones 4 through 9, gets 36 inches in height and needs 18 to 24 inch spacing. I've actually seen this planted somewhere, and it got so large that in that 3 to 4 foot tall and wide that it actually looked like a shrub in the fall, which was really cool. And they usually get these little dainty star-shaped blue flowers. There's quite a few varieties. Herbrectii is the one that I have, but there's this blue ice halfway to Arkansas. Here's the Herbrectii that I have. Hardy in zones 4 through 9, fall color and late spring blooms. Another really great perennial for the garden is the clumping or perennial alliums. Now there are alliums that you can plant in bulb form in the fall for spring blooms, and then there are these perennial clumping type alliums. There's Summer Beauty, which is like a light pink lavender color, blooms in July and August, 18 inches in height, 5 through 9 for zones. And then Millennium, which I have Millennium in my garden, and it blooms July and August as well. It's a light purple and hardy in zones 5 through 9. And here's another variety. What's great about these is that they're part of the onion family, which means that deer and rabbit stay away from them because they don't like their fragrance, and the pollinators absolutely love them. So these are a really great summer perennial. Here's another plant I want to add to my garden this season, but these are still a little bit behind, so I'll come back again in a month, and when I look for the Gallinia trifoliata, the pink version, I will come and pick this up as well. So this is the Astrantia major Roma, also known as Masterwort, and it blooms June into summer, and it is 30 inches in height and hardy in zones 4 through 7. But look at how beautiful these are. Isn't that such a pretty bloom? And I don't have these in my garden yet, so I'm looking to add a few. 20 to 28 inches, so up to 30 inches in height. Keep well watered, and it likes sun to part shade. These are still babies, and waking up now. And this beauty, Brunnera. What's really cool about this is it's a spring bloomer. So in the spring, you'll have these gorgeous blue blooms. And then when it's done blooming, the foliage gets much larger. So I always find that really interesting. There's some that lean a bit more green and then some that lean a bit more silver. Like you see here, this is the Siberian bugloss sea heart, and it's a part shade to shade plant. I've had this in my garden before. It didn't return for me. I think it was in a spot that maybe dried out too much, and they probably like a more consistently moist soil. I had it planted under some trees. There was some root competition that sopped all of the water. So I think that was the issue, but I'm certainly going to think about adding some more to my garden as my shade grows. This one is the Alexander's Great. So it looks like it gets really large, the foliage. Look at that. And it blooms mid-spring, hardy in zones 4 through 9. But these blooms are gorgeous. Look at that. And some more fall bloomers. Now last year was the first year that I had a really big bloom show on a chrysanthemum that is a true mum that I added to my garden called Sheffield Pink. And it bloomed in October, which was such a gift. It had the most beautiful peachy pink blooms. And I shared it in one of my October videos. And it opened up my eyes to this whole world of true mums or chrysanthemums, and now I want to add a bunch more. This one's called Lumasi, and it's a pink variety with a yellow center. Gets 2 to 3 feet tall and hardy in zones 5 through 9, and it blooms in October. This one's called Innocence. It looks like it could be either white or light pink. 30 inches tall, hardy in zones 5 through 9. And these all like sun and a great source of food for pollinators late in the season. And then there's a couple more here. This one is called Will's Wonderful, which looks like pink with a little bit of white and a yellow center. And then Brandywine Sunset, which looks like it's kind of yellow with a little bit of blush pink. And then Miko. That one looks like a double extra frilly one. Very pretty. And there's yet one more mum, the Purple Mist, which has a really pretty purple color. And it says 3 feet tall unless pinched in June, hardy in zones 5 through 9. So a lot of these mums will get quite tall, similar to like the Montauk daisies, where you should go in somewhere around Memorial Day and pinch them back. It will delay blooming and it'll make the plant more sturdy and shorter. Look at this beautiful foliage plant. It's the Abelia Suntastic Peach. It blooms summer through autumn. It likes full sun. It's a flowering shrub, and these are little baby shrubs. That is very pretty. Semi-evergreen, blooms early summer through fall, 3 feet tall, zone 6 through 10. Ajuga is one of my favorite ground covers. Now, sometimes it gets a bad rap because depending on what region you are in, it's possible that it could be invasive, but I have found it to be really well behaved in my garden. I have the burgundy glow, and I also have some with dark foliage like this. This one's called Black Scallop that a friend had shared with me. It is hardy in zones 4 through 9. It's 4 inches tall, and then in spring, you get these gorgeous blooms. Look at that. So pretty. And then they also have this one here called Parrot Paradise, which is a really beautiful, colorful foliage. Look at this. Isn't that so pretty? It's like orange and yellow and green. Very pretty. I believe the blooms are also purple on this one. Let's take a peek. Look at that. Featherhead Friends, Parrot Paradise. And it likes sun, part shade, and shade. So very flexible. And it gets to be 9 to 12 inches in height, and it blooms late spring. That's a real pretty one. The dark one is also gorgeous. Here's another one I spotted on the website that I wanted to pick up. And it's Actea brunette. It's the bugbane, or Simifuga, also known as snake root. So it goes by quite a few names, and it gets these really cool bottle brush looking blooms that are white with a little bit of pink, and it has dark foliage. Look at it, it's right here actually. So we'll take a peek at it. Look at that. So cool. I think when we become gardeners, we start with a lot of the gateway plants, and then as we've been gardening for a little while, our tastes kind of expand to try a few different and unique things. So this one is lacy, almost black foliage, and it gives rise to 3 to 4 foot dark stems bearing pink tinted white bottle brush flowers in August through September. Needs moist soil, and that I have, so I will give it that. So we'll go ahead and grab one of those. Lots of these grasses too. These are the Japanese forest grass. Gorgeous. This one I have in my garden. It's the all gold Hakonakloa. These like shade. They do burn up a little bit if they don't have enough sun. And I have this one, which is the all gold. And then I also have the variegated one, Areola. I saw some in a greenhouse. I'll show you. Right here is a bunch of the Hakonakloa or Japanese forest grass. So this is the Areola, which is also really beautiful. They have such a nice kind of graceful arching habit. They look really pretty in a shady spot. Really lights it up. And let's go check out some bleeding hearts. So they have the golden foliage variety and they have it in white. So I've seen it in the pink. That almost looks red actually. Look at that. These are gorgeous. They call them bleeding hearts because they look like a heart that's bleeding. Look at that. They're so cool. The heart opens up more as the bloom ages. Isn't that stunning? Look how beautiful that is. The contrast of the foliage with those pink blooms. So this is the bleeding heart ruby gold, the golden foliage, those red stems, and the pink heart blooms. And then there's also the white gold, which is the golden foliage with the white hearts. And if you're looking for something that will grow in dry shade, Epimedium will do that. I actually added some to my garden last year to plant under some trees, and it gets these really cool little kind of fairy-like flowers. They're very dainty. Look at that. And some of the foliage even takes on different colors. Gets tinted almost with a red. Several varieties of Aruncus, which I've taken a liking to because it's very similar. They might even be part of the same family as a stilbe. Look at that. Really pretty white blooms, like a ferny foliage. And this variety is just called goat's beard. Fairy hair. This one is fairy hair. Here, it's got a more dainty, fine-like foliage, where this one has more of that ferny foliage. These can handle a bit of moisture in the soil as well. Not sitting water, but moist while draining. And they like sun to part shade, and they get to be 5 to 6 feet in height and 4 to 5 foot spacing. So these you can plant as a specimen or standalone plant, and they will take up space and look really beautiful. Basically look like a shrub. Look at that. They look like plumes. And then this one here is a dwarf goat's beard if you don't have as much space. This one here is only 12 inches tall, hardy in zones 4 through 9. Nice little mound there. Have you ever smelt a scented geranium? They smell very similar to, say, like a citronella. They smell really nice. This one's called Attar of Roses and Chocolate Mint, which I believe is this geranium. Let's sniff that. Give it a smell. Oh, it smells so good. It does smell pretty minty. These are awesome, especially if you want to plant them on a patio where you can get a whiff of the smell while you're out there relaxing. These are zonal geraniums, but also very unique. Look at that. Pelargonium bird dancer. The blooms are really unique. Look at this. Isn't that beautiful? So many fun succulents. Look at these. Gorgeous. They look fake. Look at that. So pretty. Look at these wallflowers called winter orchid. Blooms early spring into summer and 18 to 24 inches tall, hardy in zone 7 through 9. So I'm in a zone 6B, 7A, so these would only be probably an annual unless I had a greenhouse to bring them into for the winter, but very pretty. Just found the cutest gomphrena, and if you've been around my channel, you know I love gomphrena and I grow it every year from seed. But look at this. It's called Little Grapes Gomphrena, and they're mini. So cute. That is adorable. What a beautiful contrast against the gold foliage on this bleeding heart. I'm back home from the nursery now, and let me share with you what I picked up. So I went in originally looking for this adorable little plant that is quite unique that I had seen Avant Garden's post on their Instagram page earlier this week. And this is double bloodroot. Now this is a woodland plant, and you typically see it growing under trees in a semi-moist soil. And what's cool about this one is that it's a double, so it looks like a little rosette. And earlier today when I was at the nursery, it actually was more open, kind of like a little white rose. And now it seems like it's closed a bit. So I think that might happen, that maybe it closes at night. If you know anything about bloodroot, let me know in the comments, because I'm really interested in this adorable little plant. Now these, because they are kind of rare, they didn't have that many. In fact, I bought the last one, and it's called Sanguinaria multiplex. It's a double bloodroot. So this brought me into the nursery, and I picked up a bunch more. Isn't that always how it happens? So when I was going through the greenhouses, this caught my eye. I love this coral bell or heuchera. It is called Southern Comfort, and it had such a beautiful color on it that really stood out against the burgundy heuchera that was on the side of it. And it has all shades of orange and caramel, even a little bit of red and peach. It's just stunning. So I picked up 3 of these. Another plant that had been on my list when I went in, because once I knew that I wanted to go in for the bloodroot, I started looking at their website. They do have a nice website and they do ship. So if you wanted to check it out, I'll link it below. Not sponsored. I bought all of these plants with my own money. But here is another plant that I found on the website that I was interested in. It's the Euphorbia Miner's Merlot. And I had purchased the Ascot Rainbow Euphorbia a couple of years ago there at that nursery at Avant Gardens, and I love it. So I want to try a new variety, and this one has gorgeous burgundy foliage. And it will also have those chartreuse blooms in late spring or early summer. So this was another plant I grabbed. And I got a single of this one because my plan is to plant this one in the middle of the 3 Southern Comfort heuchera. And I think that's going to look really beautiful together. Meadow rue or Talictrum. I picked this one up. This one is called the Lavender Mist, and this likes moist soil. So I have just the spot for this in my patio bed, and it's got a really beautiful foliage, and it's tall. So this one gets to be, I believe it's 4 to 5 feet in height, and it will get wider over time, but it gets these little purple or lavender blooms in the late spring. So that is a new to me plant. And bleeding hearts, which are a quintessential spring flower. Now I had been after this golden foliage bleeding heart for a while, and this one is called Ruby Gold. And in fact, last summer I did buy one when I visited another local nursery, Briggs. But as it so often happens, I got really busy in the summer. I kept looking for the perfect spot for it, and it never got planted. So unfortunately, it did rot in the can. Plant casualty. So I bought a replacement this year. So this is the golden foliage pink bleeding heart, and it is stunning. So I'm happy to have found another. And while I was there, I noticed that they also had a white one with the gold foliage, which is also really beautiful. Look at the heart-shaped blooms on that. Isn't that so pretty? Now they look a bit more of as a closed heart when they're first opening up, and then as the bloom ages, it opens up and you get this kind of drop look at the bottom, which makes it look like a heart that's bleeding. So these are really interesting. This plant I picked up for fun, and when I do that, I usually just pick up one so I can try it out. And this is a type of geum. Now this geum is called, let's see, Prairie Smoke, and it has a really interesting bloom. I'll actually put one up on the screen so that you can see what it looks like, but it has a few buds so that I'll get to see what it looks like. And I'm going to find the perfect spot for it because I think it's going to be really cool, and I really like this ferny foliage that it has as well. And these two were also on my list. When I went into the nursery, I had seen them on the website. And this is the Actea simplex brunette, which is a type of Simifuga or snake root. And it's gonna have dark foliage and bottle brush type of blooms in white with a little bit of pink. So I thought this was also a really cool plant. And this one gets to be, it has 4-foot stems. So I bought a singleton of this one because it is a pretty large perennial. I thought this could be a specimen or standalone perennial plant. And another that gets a pretty good size, which is why I bought one to put in the center of my patio bed, because this also likes soil that leans a little bit moist. This is Culver's root. And this has been on my wish list. I keep a running plant wish list on my phone for a couple of seasons now. And this particular one is called Apollo. So it is a type of Veronicastrum, and it's really tall and spike-like blooms, which pollinators love. And this one gets to be, let's see, 36 to 40 inches in height, and it likes sun to part shade. And it says, keep it well watered. So I'm really excited to have bought this one as well. Yeah, and that's the last plant from my haul. And I hope that you enjoyed going to the nursery and checking things out today. I will have to keep these protected for a few more days because, as you noticed, they were still all in greenhouses and haven't been fully hardened off yet. In fact, we still had frost on the lawn early this morning. So thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I'll catch you in the next one.